coffee.
Well, if no one's gonna drink this, maybe I'll just... Ugh, that's terrible. That's...
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Brian here on Pop Culture Minefield. I hope you're all well this morning. It is my last scheduled show in this slot on Pop Culture Minefield. I'm not leaving the channel, but not doing regular Thursday morning shows anymore for various personal time commitment reasons, but it's been a blast. And yes, I will be still on Pop Culture Minefield on various shows and doing stand-in hosting when necessary. So not leaving the channel, but thank you all for sticking with me through these multiple shows of my inane ramblings. Well, hopefully not that inane. So good morning. I'll just have a quick slurp of the coffee. Yeah, so great to see you all here. Lurking in the background are my good friends and the guys who make the channel, whose lubrication makes the channel go and makes all the mechanical parts work well. So that's our great friend Martin. How are you, sir? He's quiet.
Oh, boomering again. I had my mic closed. Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good. Well, glad you're here. Thank you. I'm all right, mate. Thank you for being here as usual and for your assistance. I appreciate it very much. And I'll also welcome our great friend, John Das Wolfen. How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay.
Good. I believe you have successfully completed yet another revolution around the sun today.
Yep. That's 53 of them. So
53. Well, you youngster. Happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you here, buddy. I hope you're going to have a good day. Got anything planned?
No. I did family stuff Tuesday because it's my nephew's birthday. So we just, family just generally celebrates it then. So yeah, it's
all right. Good. Well, I hope you do have a great day, you and the family. Yes, I'm not leaving the channel, but I will be giving up the regular Thursday morning slot. It's been a 4-month run, but due to various reasons, the morning slot isn't working out for me completely in terms of because it's quite early for me in the morning here with various problems I have. So, but good morning to FKHC 2005. Yes, the NIS, who are featured heavily in this movie, is the South Korean intelligence service, and he's giving us the history already, and there are movies about this particular thing too. They are like the CIA, they do shit. But good morning, Anima. Good to see you. Good morning, D-Bud. And good morning, Andy Morrow, all the way from the US of K. Good to see you, buddy.
Here's the best definition for birthday that I have seen in years.
Womb eviction, happy womb eviction day. He escaped from his mother's ovarian Bastille. As Stewie would have it in Family Guy. So, yeah, and we already have our great friend Darius Munchausen has given us a $3 super sticker, which I'm right in saying is the devil horns with
Yes, it
sparkly
is.
stuff. So well played, Darius. Thank you, sir. I will seek out here a suitable video to thank you. I'm going to go for a Korean one. Not everybody will get this one.
Yeah, Russell Crowe looks a tad different. in
Russell
this video.
Crowe's getting very fat these days. That's me refaced as Don Lee, the great Don Lee. Who I watched last night in a 2010 movie called The Unjust, where he co-starred with one of the stars of today's movie. Just before we go any further, I would like to give a big shout out to everybody. So we got a bunch of great people here on YouTube watching already. Hello to anybody and everybody on Rumble, Facebook, and KGRA Digital Broadcasting out there. Anyone that's listening or watching, good morning to you all. I hope you are all well. And a thank you, as usual, to Fuel Up, our sponsors, who links are in the description as always. And there will be more information at the top of the hour on Fuel Up, the hydration formula for work, rest, and play. Thank you to them for continuing to support Pop Culture Minefield. It's appreciated very much. So here we are today, once again, to celebrate my love of Korean movies, which I'm sure a recent article supported that they're becoming very popular, because I think Netflix said themselves that at least 60% of people that are Netflix subscribers have watched at least one Korean show or movie on the platform. And they're gradually becoming more and more popular and overtaking the English language content. I know that certainly happened for me personally. And for me, it's purely because the level of quality and enjoyment and entertainment in their output is well outstripping Western entertainment. For me, this is just personal for me today. So even the most, even not particularly great Korean content is, to me, is still more entertaining than some of the things we're getting out of the Western culture. So I'm excluding certain properties that I have loved, such as the two Extraction movies, and there's been great stuff. There has been some great stuff in the last few years, but it's much more much harder to find. You got to pick and choose. Whereas the wealth of Korean entertainment and the backlog of it, if you get into it to catch up on, is just phenomenal. So I'm just getting so much enjoyment out of watching that material. So today, I wanted to talk about a movie which I know that Gary's going to be doing another show on. It's almost like a follow-up show to this. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a movie called The Point Men. And it's filmed in Jordan in 2023. It's a South Korean war thriller set during the most recent Afghanistan conflict. I would have to say the most recent, because there's been a conflict in Afghanistan for about 2,000 years or more. So it's hard, you got to qualify the most recent one. The 2001 onwards one, perhaps we could say. And it stars Hyun Bin and Hwang Yong Min, and it's based on a real-life 2007 hostage crisis when 23 South Korean missionaries were taken hostage by the Taliban. And it's following the rescue attempts and negotiations made by a South Korean diplomat and a Korean National Intelligence Service agent who risked their lives to free the hostages. And the movie stars two of Korea's biggest names, and it's a powerhouse leading duo in Hwang Yong Min and Hyun Bin. But it also features the very wonderful Fahim Fazli, who's a great friend to this channel. And certainly would love to have been on the show today, but he's working over in Morocco, and is the time difference and the fact that he's extremely tied up with work, he's unable to join us. He hopefully will join Gary's show on this movie in August. So lots of great, it features lots of great actors. But I think I'd actually like to start by just playing the trailer for this movie so we can get a little taste of what it's about.
외교부의 중요 사명 중 하나는 자국민의 보호라고 알고 있습니다.
현재 저희의 정예 요원이 현지 코디네이터와 함께 핵심 인물 접촉 중에 있습니다.
우리한테는 하루밖에 시간이 없습니다. 가정 교섭안이 뭡니까?
그 국정원 또라이 맞지?
생각만 하다가 사람들 다 죽어나가는 풍경인데 이 사람이 진짜 국민 몰타이 그래서 된다.
제대로 된 검증부터 먼저 해야 됩니다. 협상이 틀어졌습니다. 요구 조건을 변경하겠답니다.
No trust, no deal.
우리를 도와주겠대. 탈레반과 대면 협상을 하게 해주십시오. 제가 직접 설득해 보겠습니다.
방법은 하나뿐이야.
마지막 기회입니다.
어떻게 된 거야? 군사작전 돌입한다는데.
협상이 아직 안 끝났지 않습니까?
지금 작전 들어가면 제일 먼저 표적관이 위험하다고. I will send you to hell first. 안 돼.
저는 포기할 수 없습니다.
So the trailer for The Point Men, as Anima has, and we've mentioned, and as Anima is pointing out in the chat, that we will be a follow-up show on this movie. Possibly Gary will focus a little bit more on the military veracity and the situational veracity of this movie. I'm more interested in it from just a purely entertainment perspective, shall we put it that way. He's going to focus on a lot more of the military side. So August the 10th, look out for that show. Hopefully I'll be on that show too as a guest. And I'd like to just, before I share some images of the movie and start talking about the cast, and just to say that this is based, and in some respects follows quite closely. It's a movie, obviously, takes a lot of liberties with the real life 2007 South Korean Taliban hostage crisis. So briefly, the 23 Christian missionaries from South Korea actually were traveling from Kandahar to Kabul. Strictly speaking, they shouldn't have been there. There was still a travel ban on, but things were opening up a little bit because the Taliban control had been removed from at least the capital, Kabul, and other areas theoretically from the Taliban. Their influence had been lessened somewhat. So these missionaries were there, but they were kidnapped and captured by the Taliban and held hostage. The lead negotiator was a Korean general, and there's a fantastic interview with him on this Asia Society site where he talks about the real life scenario and the real life negotiations that went on. So it wasn't a diplomat per se, it was a military guy leading the negotiation. It doesn't really talk about the role of the National Intelligence Service in it as portrayed in the movie, but I guess intelligence services don't talk about that stuff. So if you read this particular article, it does go into some detail about the real life negotiation. And there's certainly, the movie has tried at various times to remain true to the timeline and the outcomes of certain parts of the negotiation, even if it's two wholly fictional characters that are leading it in the movie. So in real life, there were a couple of the hostages were killed. There were extended deadlines, as you would expect. There were actually 200 Korean troops in Afghanistan, which is not a little known part of the coalition. And the Koreans had also been in Iraq and in Serbia and Bosnia and so on. taking part in various international coalitions, because they wanted to be seen as more of a Western-leaning country, and they had the economy to support it and so on. So great article. I'd recommend because it's well worth reading if you want to find out more about the history, certainly as portrayed by the lead negotiator. And
Ryan, please
Yeah.
give me the link in the private chat so I can put it
I
on.
will do. I just
Share
found
it with our audience.
Yeah, I found it an interesting read. So let me put that in the private chat as you have suggested, sir. And it's the website it's a rather interesting website called Asia Society, which I read quite often. So the movie itself, just to focus on that, stars. Well, it's a powerhouse duo, as I mentioned. Huynh Bin on the right and Hwang Young-min on the left, two big Korean stars. I think it may be the first time they've ever appeared in a movie together. I may be wrong on that because I've not seen everything they've done. Certainly Hwang Young-min's got a career stretching back quite a distance. But it would be like we were talking before, and the equivalent of a De Niro and Pacino appearing together in a sense, and I'm not comparing them to those guys as actors, but so putting them together in South Korea was quite a big deal. Now, Hwang Young-min plays the veteran diplomat Young Ye-ho, who's kind of thrust into the deep end when the hostages are taken and he's sent to Afghanistan, where he hasn't really got any experience. I mean, very few South Koreans do, as it turns out, of course. And he's sent to lead the Korean mission to free the captives. And in terms of career, it would be very difficult to encapsulate this guy's career in an extremely short space of time. But he has appeared in what have become many of my favorite movies. The Great Veteran, and he's making a Veteran 2 where he plays a sort of hard-bitten cop with a lot of humor, though. He's always got a lot of humor in his roles when required. Little guy, but tough as nails, or appears tough as nails on screen. Veteran's a great movie. Fist of Legend, which I really enjoyed, with about a televised MMA competition in South Korea. Hostage Missing Celebrity, where he played himself being kidnapped by a bunch of goons looking for some cash. Brilliant movie, and he plays himself really well, strangely enough. Narco Saints on Netflix, which, I mean, some people consider the inferior relative of the other Narcos output. I actually really enjoyed it, particularly as it's got a stack of really good Korean actors in it, including Ha Young-woo, who's also a top Korean actor. I call him Hawaii Pistol because it's the name of one of the roles he played in the movie Assassination. So I give him a nickname. These are all brilliant actors. The guy on the right here, Park Hae-soo, you may recognize from Korean Money Heist. He played the character Berlin, and so on. But Hwang Young-min plays the corrupt pastor in Suriname, who actually happens to be it's a front for a drug dealing business. So, and this also features two great actors from the show Mr. Sunshine that I really love. So a great TV show, in my opinion, showing again a little known Korean part of something much bigger. They had their own problems with South American drugs. And then an absolute stone cold classic for me, The Spy Gone North, where he plays a real life South Korean spy who infiltrates the North and even gets an audience with Kim Jong-il. Very tense, very exciting movie, and he just plays the part absolutely brilliantly, riveting on the screen. And then another one of my favorites, Deliver Us from Evil, where he co-stars with the gentleman on the right is Lee Young-jae, who's the star of Squid Game. And this is just, if you love action, vengeance-driven action, violent films, then you'll love this one. Let's put it that way. It's visceral is the word I would say. But co-starring opposite him is someone who unaccountably, and I've still yet to figure out why, Mrs. Rockfan thinks is really, really good. I don't know why she likes this guy. I just can't figure it out. It's a guy called Hyun Bin, who's recently become quite since about the 2010s, has become a big star as himself in Korea. He plays the intelligence agent, NIS agent Park Dae-sik. He's slightly more action orientated, obviously. In fact, any action in the movie is brought by this character. He's probably the only. His character is probably the only Korean in Afghanistan that official Korean government employee, if you want to call him that, that's got any chance of taking part in this realistically, because he is clued into the environment in the area, and he's able to do any of the dangerous action stuff that's required to help and whatever. So he's probably the only guy. There turns out to be one other guy he recruits later, but he's the only guy who's got any chance of helping them from an intelligence perspective. Because one of the things that hampers them is that they don't really want to involve the US too much or others, because they want to appear to be standing on their own 2 feet, the Koreans. So that's a problem. Now, he came to prominence in a whole bunch of K-dramas, such as Crash Landing on You, which again, Mrs. Rockfan found him strangely fascinating in this for some reason. Memories of the Alhambra, which I can never pronounce.
Alhambra.
That's the one. Thank you to our resident Hispanic guy. So, but then moved on to movie success with Swindlers, which is a fantastic con artist movie. The Negotiation, where he starred with his lovely wife, whose name I can never remember. Rampant. See, every Korean actor has to do their Joseon period movie. And this was his. So Rampant, which was actually a really good zombie movie set in the Joseon period. So if you're into zombie movies, watch this one because it's quite good fun. And then the Confidential Assignment series. In fact, the actor on the right there was in the movie I watched last night, The Unjust. These are great movies if you love buddy cop action type things. A lot of humor. He's a North Korean agent, and this guy's a South Korean policeman. They end up having to work together in kick-ass movies. A lot of great action where he shows off his action chops in these Hyun Bin. So, also in the movie is Kang Ki-young, who plays a guy called Kazim. In reality, his name is Lee Bong-han. He's probably the only Korean in Afghanistan who's able to speak Pashtun and pass as a Afghani, because he's living there undercover he's a bit of a chancer. He's a swindler. And he's kind of on the run. So he's living there just hiding out. You see him with the locals. He looks like a local and he talks like one. But Park knows who he is or finds him and basically strong arms him into helping them with the hostage crisis. But he eventually forms a strong bond with Park and turns out to be does the right stuff, finds courage in himself he didn't know. So it's a great character arc. And then finally, the great Fahim Fazli who plays the Taliban. He plays the Taliban leader that they have to negotiate with eventually. He's a great friend of this channel. There's been a ton of great military movies like American Sniper, Rock the Casbah, 12 Strong, Gerard Butler's Kandahar, which wasn't out all that long ago, I don't think. Fabulous actor.
And even in Iron Man, he was one member of the 10 Rings that captured Tony.
Yeah. He's in a lot of stuff, and he plays a very prominent role in this movie. He gets to spend a lot of screen time with Hwang Yong-min directly in the negotiation part towards the end. So it's fantastic to see him getting this role, and we look forward to the opportunity at some point in the future, hopefully in the August 10th show, to be able to ask him some questions directly about that and I have a few questions about what was it like working on a Korean production for once, as opposed to a Hollywood production, and how that was for him, and just, what were these guys really like, the Korean crew and actors, the areas with Bill Murray and Rock Casma. So yeah, great friend of this channel, wonderful chap there. He's in 12 Strong with some unaccountably good-looking guy who I can't quite place.
I have no idea who that is or what he's done.
Yeah, that guy's yeah. Mrs.
Some
Rock
minor actor.
Some minor actor. Mrs. Rock finds him quite appealing too for some reason. I've never been able to figure out why. But he looks like a weedy, ugly guy to me. The director is actually, funnily enough, is one of Korea's, if not the leading female director in Korea, which for a movie full of guys is good. It's good to see this Yim Soon-ri. So it's like, and she was also the screenwriter, I believe, slightly behind, not what you would expect from what is seen possibly on the outside as an action movie. It isn't really, of course. It's really a hostage drama with a little bit of action thrown in, mainly because Hyun Bin's an action star. So yeah, that's, these guys are doing their best K-pop impression there. But yeah, great powerhouse duo. Great to see them in there, and that's nothing to do with this. That's a completely different show. So anyway, that's the kind of rundown on the cast. Let's just take a look at some of the stills, and we'll walk through the movie. But first of all, so Darius, I was just looking at Darius's quote, Yoseon zombie movie. Sounds like it was made for Lady Munchausen. I think she'd like it. It is a lot of fun. It's interesting to see a zombie movie set back in a more of a medieval period when all they got to fight them with is swords, or basically setting fire to everything. And he plays the guy that, and it's the zombies are closing in on the royal palace in Seoul, and they've got to put a last-ditched attempt in to stop them, and he's the guy who leads that effort, and lots of swordsmanship in it. And it's a thrilling movie, actually, that I really enjoy that one, Rampant. So deserves a little bit more attention, and it is the same team that made Train to Busan, so I guess it's got a similar feel to it, except it's back in the day. Yeah, Davina says the Alhambra is a palace and fortress complex located in Granada, Andalusia, Spain. I would love to visit there. I've never been. I've been to Spain, but I've never been down there. It is supposed to be very beautiful, and it was an interesting move for the Koreans, purely for the purposes of showing off the beauty of that area, to set that show in that area, because really it could have been set anywhere. They just wanted a nice holiday in Spain. So
yeah, I have the board game.
You got the board game, all right?
Yeah, Alhambra. Yeah.
So young gay ho, that's right. There's a lot of young gay hoes in Korea, and I must, anyway, Koreans ever happen to drop in any of my videos about Korean stuff, I forgive my pronunciation, okay? I can't even speak English properly. Never mind Korean, So, but yeah, there's lots of young gay hoes and bumsy hooks, and whatever. Yeah, Monkey Jeebus, welcome, welcome to the show, Monkey Jeebus. Right, so I want to throw up some visuals while we continue to talk about this movie. Well, there you go. There's a Shin Bum Soo, you see, so straight away So the movie just sets a little bit of background to the war effort in Afghanistan, with some standard military shots of people getting on big helicopters, and pretty quickly gets into the main event, which is these hostages, or about to be hostages, traveling on this bus with an Afghani driver coming over from Pakistan, heading to Kabul on a missionary mission. I mean, their cover was that they were aid workers, but really they were missionaries, which is another fascinating thing to have, Christian missionaries coming from South Korea. not likely to endear themselves to the Taliban. Let's put it that way. And of course, and I'm glad they don't kind of linger on the early stuff too much to get straight into it, where they're basically hijacked. The bus is shot to pieces, and the driver, I think, is killed. And there was going to be a lot of spoilers here because we're walking through the entire movie, so forgive us if you've not watched it, but we will be giving lots of stuff away. And they're marched off the bus and taken to various places to be used as hostages. This was in July 2007, which started a whole month of activity trying to free them. So as I mentioned earlier, there were 200 Korean troops, South Korean troops in Afghanistan. One of the, and we're introduced to Hwang Young-min's diplomat character back in, it talks about Dubai and Beijing. I mean, it was to take a circular route to get to Kandahar because there was a travel ban. They weren't supposed to be there, but there were 200 South Korean troops. They are mainly in a support role. I don't think they were doing any frontline activities per se, although where is the front line in Afghanistan? You know, who could tell? And one of the initial demands of the Taliban was that those was a seemingly pointless one, which was which was to continue with that plan to remove the troops. Well, they were going to remove them anyway, so it seems like a bit of a pointless demand to hold people hostage for. That was their initial demand in real life. And then they later added on to that the release of 23 Taliban militants from prison. We'll come back to that in a minute, but now we're seeing the introduction of the second main character, which is the NIS agent, who's languishing in a jail, I think, in Pakistan somewhere. And the South Koreans realize they're going to need this guy out because he's the only intelligence agent they've got that's got any knowledge or experience in anywhere in both Afghanistan or that region or even the Middle East, which this isn't part of, obviously, but he's got some knowledge in this stuff. So they get him out. And, you know, he's looking a bit rough, but still Mrs. Rockfan found him strangely attractive. It's Hyun Bin. What do you expect? He's a good-looking guy. So, yeah, he's a bit of a chat. He's you know, yes, he's an NIS agent, but he seems to have some side hustles going on too, which is quite amusing. But yeah, the initial demand to continue releasing the troops was soon dropped for, we want 23 of our Taliban prisoners released. And this was something that wasn't going to be easy to achieve because the Afghani president had already done the same, Hamid Karzai had already done the same thing with an Italian hostage and received so much blowback from Western governments about it that they said, well, we're not doing that this time. So we ain't releasing no Taliban. So the South immediately shows the problem the South Koreans have in that they're the small fish here. You know, they are not that, you know, the others aren't going to push the boat out for them. Plus, their own pride stops them from reaching out and trying to get major support from the Americans or other Western countries that are in Afghanistan, particularly Americans. Their own pride and their own internal divisions in the Korean government about how to approach this complicate the whole thing right from the start. Now, Hyun Bin's character here, Park, tries to make contact with the diplomat, and the diplomat wants nothing to do with him at this point. He rebuffs him. You're like, well, no, we'll deal with this. We don't need you. and then this is what they're talking about. I mean, that's the freak who was in, and then what they're missing, unfortunately, I'm missing the little clip where they give us, well, wasn't he the guy that was involved in our Iraqi hostage crisis because a Korean was kidnapped in Iraq? And they said, yeah, but that hostage died. So Park doesn't have the best record either, because the one hostage crisis he was involved in, so naturally they're saying, well, maybe we don't want this guy. He's a bit of a dodgy character, even though he's the only intelligence agent we've got in the region. So the film, for me, does a really good job within a very short time of setting up who the main characters are, some of the Korean issues, the fact that the Afghani government don't want to go anywhere near releasing hostages. In fact, don't really care that much. And they mentioned the Italian issue here. So they're up against it. They've got nothing to offer, other than the fact that at this point, the Taliban, if they hadn't changed their initial ask, yeah, of course we're letting our troops go home, that was planned anyway. But then this ask about hostages is just going to throw them right into a loop. Now, I don't know. I mean, if Fahim was here and others that know more about the Afghanistan conflict on the ground, just how complicated this situation was in Kandahar, nominally under non-Western control with an Afghani government that isn't Taliban. Is this portrayed accurately? I don't know. But all I know is it is setting these guys up to, I mean, Huang here is the lead negotiator's got a hell of a task ahead of him with very little assets that can help him. So no money has been mentioned at this point, of course. We need you to release 23 hostages, one for each, 23 of our prisoners, one for each hostage. So the Hyun Bin's NIS agents pointing out the reality to Wang's negotiator, even though he doesn't want to hear it, that you're up against it here. You don't have any knowledge here. You don't know what you're doing. He's not trying to be nasty to him. He's just pointing out the truth, and that he's the only guy that maybe even knows anything about this stuff. So, as you can see already, not necessarily an action movie. It's a drama. So don't go into this expecting a lot of military battles or action. There's some action, but it's more about the drama and the interpersonal stuff that's going on, and the search for these two guys to find a way through these obstacles to try and save the lives of these hostages. But they're about to get, Huang's diplomat is about to get a lesson in life in Kabul. Like, this ain't what you're used to as a diplomat. And this isn't a normal country where, this is a very dangerous place. And I think what they're talking about a deadline is there's a 24-hour deadline to respond. These deadlines keep getting changed, of course, because the Taliban they want to get an outcome if they can. At this point as well, it's very important to point out they don't know who they're talking to. They don't know who they're negotiating with, who they're talking to, or even how to find them to talk to them, other than the fact that they call in occasionally. So the traffic's held up here, and this is where he gets out of his car to take a look at what's going on. And of course, there's a suicide bomber. You see him with the vest. Boom. Huang a few feet further forward, and he would have been dead. And this shows the brutal reality of life in Kabul. So, bit of an eye-opener for him.
IEDs are in Afghanistan like poppies in a field.
Yeah, exactly. It's a brutal waking up for him, what he's up against, and almost cost him his life already. And he is starting to realize as a lead negotiator that this is not going to be the normal to and fro he was expecting. And you're seeing a lot here with the various government officials that are back in Korea and the president of Korea getting involved, that the Koreans themselves have a lot of competing ideas or lack of ideas about how to do this stuff. And that does cause a problem. Hail Cam, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, kaboom in Kabul, unfortunately, yes. So yeah, the Afghanis have got their own motivations. They're not that concerned about the Koreans that they're going to change policy for them. The Americans, they're the big dogs. They're the big dogs in the country, and they're not going to allow policy changes just to suit the South Koreans. So they're kind of isolated. They've got no leverage because their troops were leaving anyway. The Afghan government has got much more on its plate to worry about them too much. And I mean, as a portrayal of a hostage situation, I think it's done very well for a movie, you know. And now Park is on the search for somebody in the back roads of the city and the back alleys. It's interesting that he himself is just kind of wandering about in all sorts of places without too much concern. He seems reasonably confident. And he's looking for this guy, and how he knows about him, I don't recall, but he knows there's one guy in the country that's a South Korean that can actually speak the language properly and can pass as a native, and it's this guy in kind of a brown face, I guess you could say. There's a slight touch of brown face in this role, I suspect. But yeah, he's living kind of undercover with the natives, you know. He's
gone native.
He's gone native, yeah. He's a bit of a chancer. I think he must be on the run from some stuff in Korea. How he's ended up there, I don't know if we ever truly find out how he ends up in there, but he seems very comfortable living as a native, and he knows the layout. He knows the fact that it's all competing tribes, and the Taliban have got various levels of influence with those tribes. The tribes themselves all have different, you know, they want to protect their area. It's full of warlords and clans and families. And I think what Park wants to do with Kazim here, that he's recruited by threats, really, like, we're going to take you home and you're going to get done for stuff. It's a radical and dangerous tanning solution. It's not a place, there's no beach holidays there. He knows this guy can help negotiate their way to find out who the hell it is they really need to speak to. Now, I love this scene. It's where they go visit in another part of Afghanistan. They're looking for these Taliban guys. He goes to visit this clan, and Kazim basically lays it on here, like, oh, I know your cousin or whatever, and you know, I did this with him, and he drops a few names, and the guy goes, oh, okay, great, well, welcome to the family, you know, here, come and have it, you know, and we're looking for these guys, and he drops the name of it. He said, oh, I saved your cousin's life, blah, blah, blah. He's just bullshitting. He didn't know the guy at all, but he knows that guy doesn't know that. So he bullshits them into getting in with them, you know, like to get help with them. And it shows, I think, that the Afghani people, it does show that they're just trying to get by too in a dangerous situation. Yeah. These guys are not Taliban supporters, neither are they blind to the consequences of going against the Taliban, but they're just ordinary people that are trying to get on with it. But yeah, I love the fact he drops a few names, and he says later to Huang's diplomat, he goes, nah, I didn't really know that guy, I just used his name. Abdul Karim Qasim. It's this is all to try and figure out where the hostages might be, what area they're even in, how to find someone to negotiate with, because all they've got right now is occasionally someone phones them, no name, just here's our demands and do this by this time. And there's some great scenes here of them, getting in with the sort of the feast with the Afghan clan, and Hyun Bin doing some bonding with them by jumping through the fire and all that stuff. So I like this because whilst they started out at odds, now they're working together as a team, the three of them, and this is why it's called the Point Men. These three are truly the guys that are ever, if everything's going to be done, they're the guys that'll do it. The rest of the Koreans, they don't stand a chance of doing anything without these three guys. They're out there in the field now, which is interesting for Wang's diplomat, because I don't think typically he would get that close to this kind of thing. But he's putting himself on the line. He knows he has to do that. So it's great. His character shows some courage. He's not a weedy bureaucrat, even if he is a weedy bureaucrat. But yeah, Hyun Bin gets right into this stuff, his character. And we do start to... Sorry, go ahead.
Diplomat hitting the opium pipe for the first time.
That's right. He's like, what's in this thing? This bong. Yeah. Yeah, the Yurga. Now, again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but it's like the tribal assembly. Not the Taliban, of course.
Yeah.
It looks like they're like a council of elders that not even the Taliban can contradict.
No, and that's why even though Taliban control of Afghanistan is, like any control of Afghanistan, is fluid, because these guys are the true masters of their own areas.
Yeah.
And their council is not the Taliban can't threaten or subvert them. They're to be listened to, and have influence, but they're not controlling the Yurga. And yes, he's a great character, Kazim, because he's kind of a chancer, and he's not in this for the bravery or the honors. He's kind of getting forced to do it, but he provides the comic relief in the movie, so to speak. There's some beautiful landscapes filmed in Jordan, and there's some magnificent landscapes and scenes of the areas that they have to travel through. I don't know how close that is to the real Afghanistan in terms of scenery or landscapes. Fahim would have been able to tell us. But it still looks good. And they're trying, so there's an effort in South Korea to try and control the narrative of what's being said, and to use a little bit of that to influence the Taliban. But it's, because the Taliban are not just guys sitting in caves. That would be stupid to underestimate them in that way. They're watching the media. They've got the technology too. They're pretty savvy guys, some of them.
Yeah, he's busted.
He's busted, yep.
Yeah, because the Korean TV says that they were missionaries, and nobody liked that in Afghanistan.
That blew it for them, yeah. So yeah, the narrative back at home is screwing things up for these three guys. And I enjoyed this aspect of it, though. The fact that, as Davina says, Koreans in Afghanistan stick out a little. They do. And that's what makes this an interesting Afghan war movie. It's not yet another movie about Americans in Afghanistan. It's a bunch of guys who stand out, have very little local knowledge, don't have the military might to back anything up, have no intelligence apparatus at all, very little influence over the locals in any way, if the fact they had no influence at all, especially as they were planning to get out of Afghanistan. So that aspect of it really appealed to me. You know, like what do you do when you really don't have anything and you have to throw yourself on the mercy of locals for their help who may not give a shit about you, and the fact your own country doesn't really know what it's doing either.
Yeah.
That I loved. I loved that aspect of it. And the language issues, absolutely huge. It's bad enough with the English forces and the language issues, but at least many of the Afghanis and even the Taliban are English speakers in some shape or form. English is the universal language of negotiation in many respects. These guys, the only guy that can speak Pashtun is Kazim that they've got with them. There's no one else.
Well, the Americans at least had several of the local Afghanis that hated the Taliban and were willing to step up and interpret for them.
Yes, our good friend Fahim, of course, was an interpreter for the Marines. So you're starting to see a little bit more of the Taliban coming forward a bit more. I mean, what they've had till now is just like a phone call or two. Now they're releasing videos. They're showing the hostages, who would in reality were split up into different little groups and getting moved around a lot. They're showing them and they're making their demands more public. Still, of course, these guys are looking at that going, who are we talking to here? Which one guy are we supposed to talk to get this done? Yeah, it's
a little bit down.
He's a bit pissed off. Well, he don't know what to do. He doesn't know what. Now, another aspect of their scenario, this is probably fictional. I mean, the next part of stuff is probably fictional. Yeah, actually, this is really neat because these guys are getting some good screen time together, the two of them. As I say, they're two of Korea's biggest stars. So it's kind of like I was equated to things like the movie Heat, where De Niro and Pacino sit down. It's not quite the same in impact. I don't want to overestimate the entertainment impact of it, but they've not had a lot of screen time in their careers, these guys, and they are two of the biggest stars. So having them closely sitting down, just the two of them as a two-hander talking is really neat, you know.
Kind of like when 3 of the 4 Chris's were on screen at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to compare them in style or the impact of a De Niro or Pacino, and that's a different. I'm not demeaning either side of the entertainment world, but they do. It was a big moment for those guys to sit down and have all that screen time, you know. And the movie did pretty well in Korea and other East Asian markets. So again, Mrs. Rock fan was somehow interested in this scene. I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't get it. I mean, he's a weedy short. He's not short. He is objectively a good-looking guy, and he's because he started doing a lot of action roles. He's really come into his own physically, you know. Now this is the aspect which is probably entirely fictional, although I would imagine on the ground in Afghanistan it's pretty common. There's a lot of people, grifters and con men, trying to exploit the situation, knowing there's a lot of Western cash flowing around, a lot of aid money, a lot of desperation from governments, like in this scenario. This guy is a British guy who claims he can intercede with the Taliban leader that they're looking for a fee and help them. And he's got he can speak the lingo, he's got the apparently sincere local, knowledge of the local scene. And so they're desperate. So they go to this guy, puts himself forward and says, I can help you. I know who we're talking to, and I can talk to him for you. And they go for it, you know. And this is when there's a BlackBerry. I used to work for BlackBerry, you know.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore.
They exist as a software company.
Yeah, but they don't exist as a phone manufacturer.
No, they don't make hardware anymore, which is a great shame. But that's a different story entirely.
Yeah.
I've still got many of them in my drawer back then. Yeah, this whole section leads to one of the few action sequences in the movie. Yeah, war profiteers, vultures. So this is a portrayal of that, and I'm sure they exist. I'm not sure they were involved in this particular real life scenario, but they certainly put it in the movie, and it's very effective. And I kind of think they put it in just to give Hyun Bin some action, some gunplay and a car chase and a motorbike chase in his case. So they get there. They get to this assignation that they're supposed to go to, where this British guy is, and they're supposed to. And that's one of the guy behind Hyun Bin is one of the British guys' cohorts, and they're supposed to be contact with the main Taliban guy, and all this stuff is meant to be happening. Money is meant to change hands, and shit goes sideways.
As it wants to do in Afghanistan.
As it wants to do, yeah. I mean, all this, the Taliban have got nothing to do with any of this. This guy's a complete grifter. I think FKHC 2005 is looking for a different layout.
Oh, he wants your picture on the other side, like MST3K.
All right, okay. We got a couple of minutes to go before the break.
Yeah, no,
well, actually, it's break time.
Okay, well, I'll pause this and go for it.
Okay, here we go.
Hi guys, this is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived. Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here with us on Pop Culture Minefield, Morning Coffee with Brian, where we're talking about the 2023 Korean-Afghan war set movie, The Point Men. And it's for me, it's, as I said earlier, it's not an action movie. It's not a war movie, particularly. It's a hostage drama with a great deal of tension throughout the movie. You feel the tension of the deadlines. You can see the desperation of the lead actors as their characters try to figure out how to get these guys free. They're not getting any help from the their own government don't know what to do. They're not getting any help from the Afghanis. The Americans don't really care because they're not going to budge on releasing prisoners either. At this point, no money has been mentioned in terms of a hostage. But this is where the grifter that they've been talking to reveals his true colors and basically wants to take their money. And Hyun Bin figures out something isn't right. He disarms the guy behind him with a really neat move showing his action chops. And then these guys want to make their getaway with the cash without delivering anything. They've been paid, but they ain't going to deliver nothing because they're grifters. So at first it looks like they're clear to get away, not going to get followed. But Hyun Bin is giving, this is the action part that is a relief in the movie from the tension, I think. It's just to give you some distraction from the tension of the negotiation scenario. It gives Hyun Bin a chance to stretch his action chops. So he gets on the bike, chases after their vehicle, but first of all, he wants to put the boot in them, as we'd say. But secondly, wants to get the money back and bring them to some kind of rough justice. So you get a chase through this town, which I'm assuming is in Jordan. I don't know the name of the town, but I pass it standing for Kabul, but I guess it looks pretty accurate. They've done well with the look of this movie, I believe, from everything I've read in review terms. So he gets to do some Indiana Jones stuff, hanging off cars, jumping off bikes onto vehicles, shooting the shit out of stuff. It's like a very enjoyable 3 or 4 minute action sequence.
Except he's not 80 years old.
He's not 80 years old, no. So he's, and he, he gets them, basically. Well, he gets the money anyway. So, yeah, the Koreans, of course, the Korean government think because the NIS agent has been involved in some shady stuff before in Pakistan, they think he's set all this up himself. Well, why he would chase after them and risk his life like that if he was, that doesn't make any sense. But that's the Korean government for you. And the other diplomats here, they're like, well, we don't know this guy like you do. We don't trust him. Hwang trusts him, though, because he saved his life, basically. I don't know what they're talking about 30 Koreans for, because there was only a maximum of 23. Now, I'm not sure at this point whether or not any of the hostages have been killed. I can't quite recall the timeline. But in real life, 2 of them were executed when deadlines were not met. So that really ups the pressure on them. Yeah, need more time. Well, they don't get... Yeah, the Taliban are... Yeah, you're right, FKHC. I mean, it was, another country that's been ruined by...
Yeah. We've renamed him Tim.
Tim?
No. Tim?
Yeah.
Tin? Sorry.
Tim, as in from Monty Python and Holy Grail.
Tim. All right, Tim. Is he going to bring us a shrubbery?
No, he's too busy trying to cut him down with a herring.
Yeah. So yeah, hostages are now getting executed. The Taliban are running out of patience, although it serves nothing to them to execute all the hostages. And still at this point, they don't know what to do because no Taliban prisoners are going to get released. That isn't going to happen. So I can feel the despair that they have. Like, what the hell are we supposed to do? You can't negotiate when there's nothing to negotiate with, and no one willing to negotiate with you, at least face to face, or the Taliban, they've made a few phone calls. That's it. And now you're starting to see in the background, they mentioned their joint military exercise, the Americans and the other Western powers are going to start launching exercises in the area that they think the hostages are being held in. So there's going to be strikes there, there's going to be activity there, and that's because they're thinking, well, the Taliban are going to just kill our guys, or they're going to get killed by the bombings when they, caught as collateral damage. Because I think the American feeling at this point is that, well, you know what, we'll just go in and bomb the shit out of the Taliban here, and that's our negotiation. If they're going to kill the hostages anyway, we might as well just go get these guys with blanket, bomb them. Yeah, and they're going to throw Hwang out, basically. He's failed in the eyes of the Korean government, not that they were any better, and they're going to send him home.
Well, he didn't fail. It was the news that tore the whole deal down.
That's right.
Yeah, the Koreans back home screwed up. He didn't.
That's right. Yeah, but of course, hierarchies in governments always look for someone to blame. So he's the guy. You were the lead negotiator. You failed, not us. And that's pretty common in all of our societies. But if you watch a lot of Korean movies, it seems to be extremely common there. The upper layers are always going to pin it on that one guy.
This is the kind of situation when I can stand the media when they say, "Oh, my ratings, it's more important than the life of the hostages."
Yeah, we want sensationalism. We want shit to happen. We like it when shit happens because then we can breathlessly report on it.
Yep.
Yes. So he was on the verge of leaving, but he doesn't want to go. So he's directly on with the president now of South Korea, who, as FKHC pointed out, the NIS once upon a time were implicated in trying to assassinate a South Korean leader. That sounds like a familiar story. An intelligence service taking out their country's leader?
That might have happened in 1963.
Might have. I mean, I've got a feeling that sometime early in the 60s something similar happened. Or maybe, that's what they say. I mean.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian is here.
Christian, hello, my friend. Just imagine how worse it would be if this was the French. I mean, they would never, the language barrier would just be, French-Canadian language barrier in Afghanistan must have been terrible when the Canadians were there, Like, you're Canadian, why are you speaking English? Well, I'm a French-Canadian. So, moitié anglais. Tabarnak. Good to see you, Christian, buddy. Thanks for being here. All right, so they're looking for Kasim in here in this jail cell. It's funny how both Park, the agent, and Kasim have both ended up in jail cells in this movie at some point.
Well, but I forgot the name. Dexim?
Kasim?
No, the other one.
Oh, the name of the NIS agent?
Yeah. He was in prison.
Hang on, it's Park Day-sik. Park
Day-sik.
Yeah.
He was in prison. His being in prison was part of his assignment because he was he was in a cover mission, but he was longer than he expected.
Sorry, I missed that because I thought he was in there because they'd caught him. The Pakistani authorities had caught him with counterfeit currency. I didn't realize he was deliberately trying to get in there.
Yeah, that was part of an operation, the currency. But apparently they said to him that he was going to be spending a lot of less length of time in prison, and he was pissed about
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah. He's still
No, in
pissed.
fact, they just got him out of prison because they need him.
Well, that's right. They only because they need
Yeah,
him because of this. Yeah,
they were very willingly to. They were willing to leave that guy in prison.
Well, that's right. Well, I guess the South Korean government didn't want his activities being too public with the Pakistanis. So, yeah, he took the fall. Always the guys at the bottom take the fall. So, it's FKC. Sorry, as the Onion has said, Kennedy slain by CIA, Mafia, Castro, LBJ, Teamsters, Freemasons, President 129 times from 43 different. And I'm waiting for the last word. Wait, but yeah, let's face it. I've been to Dallas. I lived in Dallas. I've been to the grassy knoll. I've been to the square there. It's a pretty small area. It must have been absolutely packed with assassins that day. Like every second person was an assassin. Everywhere you looked, assassins. It was the magic bullet. It's like watching a John Wick movie. Everybody, you're wondering, where are the civilians? Every single person in this world is a killer. There are no civilians.
The only civilian was his wife, and she died.
Yeah. She died as a result. Yeah, but yeah. So these guys are now putting them. They are personally on the line now. Like they're out there and they're trying to meet face to 129 times from 43 different angles. That's right. All that was left of his body was this small flap of skin. That was it. Yeah, I mean, it's not a big square there in Dallas.
Kasim's not happy.
Yeah, he's not. No, he's like, I didn't sign up for this shit. He's kidding. So the Taliban have finally decided that they're going to meet with these guys because they know they're not getting their hostages. The civilians are all dead in John Wick. Well, that's what it looks like. There's also the other rule of John Wick movies is there are no emergency services.
No.
Oh, well, just in the first one.
In the first one. Second, like in the fourth one they're having a mass shootout and car chase in the middle of Paris. Not a police car to be seen, not an ambulance to be seen. They're up on the steps having a shootout. That place is heaving with tourists normally, even in the middle of the night.
The police were advised. They said, John Wick is involved and said, hell no.
But there's that place is full of tourists at night, Montmartre or wherever it was they were meeting up on the steps there. Like, even in the middle of the night, there's hundreds of tourists around. Where were they in John Wick?
It's like in Tokyo when the Godzilla sirens go off. All the civilians run away.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, where is everybody? I love that. The rules, the John Wick rules of the John Wick universe. There are no civilians. There are no emergency services. Everybody is in service. Anyway, this is where the movie gets, really ramps up the tension. He's trying to pin Fahim. This is where we see Fahim Fazli, of course, and he gets a lot of screen time with Hwang Yong-min, which I would love to ask him about. Because what I was wondering was that, in an English production, great, just about everybody speaks English at some level or other. This is a Korean production, so what was the communication like between Fahim and the Korean actors and crew? Was there translations into English going on in some areas so they could talk to each other about how the scene was going to play out and so on? I know that Hwang Yong-min does speak English occasionally in the movie. I'm not sure how good his English is in real life.
Well, I know Fahim's English is very good, and it's amazing how he acts in this movie with a very, very bad English.
Yeah, he's actually
not as bad as mine.
Yes. So you're saying, Martin, that you're Taliban? Is that what you're saying? You're a Taliban?
I may not be at liberty to discuss that.
But I love this stuff. I mean, this is the real face-to-face negotiation. whilst the threat of military action becomes real above their heads. Yeah, that's right. The Enterprise is the only ship nearby in Star Trek, except when it's fighting another ship that's been taken over by bad guys.
Yeah.
Rogue Starfleet people who have taken over that ship, or somebody else has taken over that ship.
Or if there is another ship, it's immediately destroyed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there are rules. This was great stuff. Poor Kazim, he's getting out of his mind here because he didn't sign up for this shit. And here he is, face to face with one of the deadliest Taliban commanders, we're assuming, in Afghanistan, because there are multiple commanders, there's not just one. And they've not got any, the very little leverage. Huang's got no leverage. They're not going to release any prisoners. So his leverage now is coming down to, well, they're going to bomb the shit out of this place soon, so we're all going to die if we don't get something done quickly here. And how about changing your conditions? Like money? Would you accept some cash? Not that the South Korean government are going to confirm that in public these days, all the Taliban have. How about some cash? Can we give you something else other than prisoners? Are you here to negotiate and get something, or are you just here to watch us all die? Is basically the South Koreans' argument.
We got this whole case of American $100 bills that are just sitting here,
sitting right here, warm, glowing warmly, nice. Yeah, I love that. Cam tourists and cops are everywhere in Paris and Tokyo, except in John Wick and kaiju movies.
Yeah. Oh, they're there in kaiju movies. They're just all running away.
They're just running away. Yeah, little running away.
Well, you have to accept that there should be a public service in the John Wick's universe and say, hey, this guy is in this area. Please don't get out.
That's right. Yeah, I love the FKCH's negotiation proposal. Offer them a case of Bud Light.
So you want to get the hostages killed?
You want to get the hostages killed immediately? I mean, come on. Two things the Taliban don't like: alcohol and the other thing that we shouldn't mention on stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two things the Taliban are pretty firm on, I think. They may be flexible on cash, but they're pretty firm on the other stuff. Yeah, Koreans aren't our guests. So they're basically saying, the Taliban commander's pretty savvy guy. Hell, he's so savvy he shoots one of his own people at one point in this sequence, who oversteps the bounds of threatening those guys. He said, "You're not our guests here. You shouldn't be here." And so Christian, yes, we know about the French Canadians in Afghanistan. They were illegally smuggling maple syrup. There was a whole maple syrup smuggling ring. Forget poppies and that other trade. It was maple syrup smuggling was the...
Well, that the value of the maple syrup is superior to the value of oil.
That's right.
So
yeah,
indeed, because you can't rub oil all over your body without consequences, without negative consequences.
I think there's a name for that.
Yeah. Anyway, I love this sequence. Fahim gets a chance to really stretch out. He's got a good 10 minutes worth of screen time here where he's... I would like to ask him if he's a little bit tired of perhaps playing Taliban commanders, and I don't mean that in a negative way because work is work, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure seeing some of the other things he's done, he's got a lot more range than that. But I guess work is work, and he is an expert in this field. So he plays it so well because he plays the guy as like many of them would be. Some of the Taliban commanders, like Bin Laden, were Western educated, very smart guys. They're not all just rural whatever, and this guy plays it that way very much. He's not just there to for the ideology. He's a smart guy, and that's why Huang's arguments make inroads with him in the end. But this is pretty neat because The torture ants live in maple syrup too. That's correct. Yes. We tortured them not by waterboarding them. We poured maple syrup all over them and left them out in the sun.
Well, that's a very expensive method of torture.
It's expensive, but satisfying, I think, as a humane torture. So
humane.
I'm just kidding.
Well, the ants will all tell the other ants around in the other colonies, going, "Hey, these guys have the good stuff."
That's right. That's right. These guys have that good stuff. So this is pretty neat in that the negotiation has gone a certain way. I mean, obviously, we're missing certain. When you do these stills, you miss certain shots, and we missed the Taliban commander shooting his own guy to stop him from killing him and Kazim. But he gets released. Poor Kazim's still not very happy. He's still over there. Park intervenes to try and get Kazim released, and he himself has to remain with the Taliban as the guarantor of that this deal is going to be completed with successfully, and they're not going to come after the Taliban immediately and within the next few minutes, whatever. So he volunteers to stay with them. And Kazim's like, thank God for that, I get out. And I think at that point, you don't know whether Grinbin's character is going to be released or survive or not. You know, are they going to keep him, the Taliban, or are they going to release him? Are they going to kill him? Whatever. Winbin goes back, Huang's diplomat goes back home. And then there's a bit of tidy up in the movie with press, suing the press and other things going on.
And they're signing an NDA.
Yes. Because the South Korean government to this day, other than the interview I saw the showed earlier with the general that led the negotiation, are still pretty tight-lipped about stuff like the money.
Well, they must not be very happy with this movie.
I don't know. I've not read any reaction from the South Korean government per se. I wouldn't imagine any government would be keen in showing their dirty laundry because it doesn't make them look good. It makes the characters look good that are doing it. So now we're getting the good news, though, that Park got released by the Taliban and he's now off with his new buddy because they've formed this bond. Kazim is now full-time working for him in the NIS and they're off somewhere else in whatever. It could be the Middle East, could be whatever. He's now working for him as a full-time guy, you know. He's still chancing it a bit. He's looking for some cash. So that's a happy ending for those two guys. They're both free. They're Park's now got a buddy to work with in the field. And now there's a new hijack crisis. And look at me, I am your captain in that area, you know. And neat scene at the end with Huang's diplomat coming into the press conference and all the other junior diplomats around the room saluting him in a sense, you know, like, great job, even though the government doesn't want to acknowledge it. Saying, you know, you did a fantastic job there. His colleagues know. He put his life on the line and he got a result. They got released. 2 of the hostages in reality were executed by the Taliban. The rest eventually did get released. Not all at once. I think 2 of the girls were kept back, but then they got released after as well. One of them was quite ill. So no hostages, no Taliban prisoners were released in reality or in the movie, and money did change hands, apparently. Maple syrup covered people, and a happy ending, yes. Yeah.
So does this indicate that there's going to be a point in end 2?
I don't know, because I liked the 3 lead characters there. And the problem I think would be is that if you look at Hyunbin's Park and Kasim, their expertise as intelligence guys is really limited to that theater. It's either the Afghanistan or Middle East theaters. There's no real, in fact, Kasim may or may not speak Arabic. He certainly speaks Pashtun, but that's a different thing. So, Pashtun. So, but I did like the characters, and I liked the fact you could take those characters and you could put them in another situation and do something with them. On the other hand, I think it's because the real life scenario was a one and done. I think that's it. And those two guys are so busy as actors that where would that fit into their schedules? It's possible.
Yeah, they would have to all be free up at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh well, you can always pull
money.
Something like The Force Awakens and never show them together, and finally kill one of them.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a follow up. Although you never know. I mean, it was a relatively successful movie in South Korea. I mean, did pretty well because of the two leads. You never know when you get two leads like that. The public want to pay ticket money to see them. You never know.
Money talks.
Money talks, and I enjoyed seeing those guys on screen together. I always enjoy it when they match up leading stars in Korean movies, and you see quite a lot of that. Hwang Young-min, insanely busy guy. I mean, he's in 3 or 4 movies a year. He's done TV like Narco Saints. He's a recent Netflix Korean show, which was okay. I mean, it had its moments. Kill Boksoon, which showed tendencies towards Western sensibilities. I have to hate to say when you watched it. Did feature some great action though in it, kick-ass action. And Hwang Young-min's in the first 5 minutes. Oops, spoiler alert. It's the best 5 minutes of the movie. He's absolutely incredible in it. So he does a lot of that stuff too, just dropping in and out as almost cameo roles and stuff. He's very popular. Hyun Bin is a huge heartthrob star in Korea too. So getting them back together again would be wonderful. As those characters, though, probably not. I'd like to see a movie with Hyun Bin as his character, even if Wang wasn't in it, just him as an agent. That would be.
This movie needs more Don Lee.
It needs. We can never get enough Don Lee. Can never get enough Don Lee.
Yep.
Especially because he looks so handsome in those. Cam, I'm in the maple syrup capital of the States. We call it sugaring. The place you make it is in the sugar house, not the sugar shack, then the sugar house. I've made a few gallons in my time, and I bet you've drunk a few gallons too. So I watched the movie I watched last night, The Unjust from 2010. Don Lee was the secondary character to Hwang Young-min's dirty cop in it. He wasn't dirty, but they were best buds. But turned out Hwang Young-min was dirty. So, but Don Lee was in like a supporting role, and that was one of his earlier roles, I think. Not as bulked up as he is now.
Yeah,
I mean, he's pretty bulked up now.
This super chat.
Holy moly, Christian! Thank you, sir. $10 Canadian super chat. Joke of the day. A guy goes to the tattoo parlor and gets the words "I love you" inked on his private parts. He goes home and his wife says, "Hey, stop trying to put words in my mouth." Who's got the
think is.
So thank you, Christian. I think you deserve a clip for that, and you know what you're going to get. Yeah, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that very much. And thank you, FKHC. I've really worked hard over the last couple of years since I started watching Korean stuff to really work on the names. The problem is when you watch Korean movies and shows, they don't pronounce them in the way that they're written. They don't sound anything like it because they're Koreans, so they do it in their whatever accent they've got. So Park Soon-mik would actually turn out to be Park Soon-oh, You know, it would be something that sounds like that. So you can't really learn from listening to it. So I just try to pronounce it the way it says online. This is how you should pronounce it. That's why I nickname a lot of them. Like I give the actors nicknames. So the Choi Moon-sik, who's a brilliant actor, who was the star of a show called Big Bet. And he's been in tons of great movies. He's possibly as I say, the Robert De Niro of Korea, or what De Niro used to be. Choi Moon-sik, I just call him Big Bet because that's a great show that he was in. Well, it's Big Bet. And then the other guy that was in Narco Saints, they call him Hawaii Pistol because I can never pronounce his name. You know?
Okay. Oh my God.
So I just use their nicknames. I use nicknames. So my apologies to my Korean, Don Lee is easy because I can call him Don Lee, not Ba Dong Suk, which is his real name.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we call him the Slapper, my wife and I. That's the Slapper because he slaps people. And I do intend to do eventually videos and shows going through the careers of each of these guys. Hung Wang. Well, Hung Wang is my favorite Korean actor, but, you know. Wang Chung is also one of my favorites. But hey, Zax, how are you, buddy? So, guys, you've watched the movie. I really enjoyed it. It's not by any means my favorite Korean movie, but I felt I liked the fact it wasn't an action movie and a war movie, really. It's more of a interpersonal hostage drama. What do you guys think overall about it?
Well, I think it does well breaking up the tension with the action scene. Because that's at the point, that's pretty much at the point where they're about to give up. It feels like that, that nothing's going to go right. And then they get taken advantage of by someone that they thought was going to get them out of the situation. And, had to break down into violence. But, overall, it's a good movie. It's, don't go, like you said before, don't go into expecting it's going to be a full action flick because it's not. It's a drama.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I mean, it's a drama, and Davina's got it right. The real life situation was tense and scary, and you can understand why it's worth making a movie. It was a big event in recent Korean history, and I think the fact that they've chose to make it a drama with some real life veracity rather than a full blown action movie where Hyun Bin's character infiltrates a cave, kills hundreds of guys, and rescues the hostages, I think is to its credit. It's a drama. Don't go expecting an action movie. Go in looking to understand the characters and follow their interplay, which I really like. A Fistful of Yen. Oh God, yeah. Hang on. You see, you've opened the doors now to me.
You woke the dragon.
You woke the dragon.
Take him to Detroit.
No, not Detroit. No, please. Anything but that. No.
I agree. We have to do a show on A Fistful of Yen, albeit it's only 15 minutes long in Kentucky Fried Movie. But oh no, a toy robot! Whatever. There's it's a great movie. Movie-ish. It's good to see you. Thanks for sticking with us here, everybody, through this. Thanks, Zax, for joining us. Cam, Davina, whatever. It's great to see you all in the chat and chatting away. Martine, did you enjoy this movie particularly?
Oh yeah, as I told you before the show that I was expecting to have a little more action, but it was a good surprise. It wasn't what I was expecting, but that doesn't undermine the quality of the movies. It's a good movie nonetheless.
It is. It's very absorbing. I did love the fact that the filming in Jordan looked fantastic. They put a lot of great effort into making it look good, and I did love the interplay between the three main characters. And then when they introduced Fahim later, that was great. Those scenes were great too. So great drama, great chemistry between the leads. Yeah, Zach's no problem, buddy. I've always enjoyed dropping by your show when I can, and it's always very entertaining. A lot of good stuff, mate. Yeah, you have a wonderful show. Good. I mean, I'm sure everybody here already subscribes to Zach's and watches his stuff.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't, go do that, please. And hey, one day I'll hopefully get to pop on and chat with you guys on your streams. Yeah, so definitely a good one for me. I love seeing those guys. Loved seeing those guys together. I will watch anything that's got Hwang Yong-min in it. He is a great actor. Well, if you want to watch Fistful of Yen, you got to watch Kentucky Fried Movie because it's in there, it's embedded within that movie. Because Kentucky Fried Movie is a movie about movies. Basically, it's full of fake trailers and spoofs of other movies. I personally adore Kentucky Fried Movie. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. It deserves more attention, I think.
Unfortunately, it's extremely problematic by today's standards.
Well, yeah, things like Catholic high school girls in trouble.
I was thinking more about the game show.
Oh, the game show, yeah. And then there's the one where the Jewish guy and the Jackie Brown type.
Yeah.
What was it? The something and the something. I can't remember the. I don't know if I can even say the words.
Yeah, I don't think we can get away with that now.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So I think it's the same guys that did Airplane, and it's the Zookers, isn't it, or the guys that did Airplane and stuff like that. Hilarious movie. But yeah, the Catholic high school girls in trouble is one of my favorite trailer spoofs in it. Yeah, so this hostage scenario did end relatively well. So, being a dirty old man, Christian says. So, moving on from that, just to talk about a couple of other things that I have recently watched, just to see if you guys have watched them or anybody out there. At least Netflix, we talked about it earlier. They're having a lot of success with Korean stuff. I've a certain tendency, one or two of their shows, to try and introduce more Western sensibilities, which I hope they keep away from. Yeah, Kentucky Fried Movie is hilarious and Top Secret. Brilliant movies. Bloodhounds I watched recently on Netflix. So, but I have to say, generally speaking, the Netflix Korean stuff is pretty good. It's not the only Korean shows out there. You can find others elsewhere. But Bloodhounds, about the two young boxers, ex-Marines, who end up basically fighting violent loan sharks. If I don't want to give too much away because I'd like you to watch it. I have to say that this was a pretty visceral show, much more visceral than I was expecting, much more violent. Yeah, Naked Gun. Brilliant movies. Love those movies. You couldn't get anything like that made now, I don't think. These two guys, again, I don't know whether they cast these young Korean guys that they cast really put the effort in when it comes to looking the part, and I know they're. It's funny thing is, you go down to Asian Wiki, you look up a Korean show, and it'll say X actor is in K-pop band XYZ. Virtually all of them are in K-pop, but they start to make these shows and movies, and they really, really, you can see they put the effort in. These guys look the part. They're supposed to be boxers, supposed to be very capable, and basically they're fighting predatory loan sharks at great personal cost, often. So pretty exciting show, much more violent than I anticipated. Very R-rated, I would say, and a lot of fun though. You want to see these guys beating up a gang of 30 people, then it's good.
Yeah.
So Bloodhounds is a great show I've watched recently on Netflix. Please check it out. Brilliant cast. The guy on the right here is a Korean actor. You'll see in a lot of stuff, and forgive me, I don't have his name memorized. I call him Designated Survivor because he played the chief of staff, corrupt chief of staff, in the Korean version of Designated Survivor. And then the other guy next to him is a villain. He specializes in playing villains in many, many movies. He was actually in Yoon Bin's Swindlers earlier that we showed the poster for. But yeah, kick-ass show, not Korean, but Japanese, is the sumo show that's on Netflix, Sanctuary. Just finished watching that last night. I don't know if you guys have watched it at all. Oh, well, Zach was mentioning it. So I just finished it last night. I mean, I do watch a lot of Japanese stuff too. I really loved it. I was a bit surprised that the final episode was only 30 minutes long, given most of the others were closer to an hour. So that was a bit weird. It's 8 episodes. Yeah, golden rule of Korean movies: nobody dies from a knife wound. Like, one of the Bloodhounds guys there gets savagely stabbed in a showdown with the bad guys halfway through the series, or 6 episodes in. Year later, well, he doesn't die. Let's put it that way. Even though, like, oh, come on. Normally they're up and about in a day. At least, admittedly, in that one it took him a year. But sometimes in Korean shows they get stabbed. An episode ends, you think, oh, that's the end of that guy. Next episode he's up and about. But Sanctuary, to talk about that, and Zach's has obviously seen it. It is fabulous. A whole world opened up a whole world for me about sumo, which I've seen sumo stuff, but usually you see the actual fights, the bouts, where it's in the arena and they're all doing the rituals, and it's all very rich, respectful to the history. This takes you behind the scenes of the dojos and the training that they're doing, but also introduces a character like this guy Eno, who's but like the punk rocker of sumo, I think as you could describe him as. And the trials and tribulations he's got, and the learning curve he's got in it, because he's not respectful of the rituals. He's going into it because he wants to make some cash because he's got no other options. The actor does a brilliant job because he's an actor. Some of the actors are sumo guys that are in it. He's not, but he's bulked up to play the part, and he's doing the bouts. It's much more visceral than I would have expected. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of, in the training particularly, a lot of injury. They're not just wrestling. There's a lot of punching and kicking and gouging and slaps in the face, and he suffers some terrible injuries at one point from one of the other sumos, who's just this huge guy. So Davina is giving us some info on this.
Yeah.
No, but yeah.
Is that a different show?
Yeah. A different story. Yeah.
Right.
It's she's saying it's also the name of a manga that's famous.
Okay. Yeah, and but yeah, it's a great show, well worth checking out, guys. It's a lot of fun. In fact, I don't know. I want you to show the trailer, but I'm not sure we can. I haven't tested it for copyright, but I'd like to show it, but I can always keep the sound off, I guess. We should be okay with that, I think. Martin, what do you think?
I don't know, man. At this point, I don't know.
I would like to show a few seconds of it anyway, if we could. And I don't know if I've got the audio shared anyway. But just if I keep pausing it, so... That's Bloodhounds, sorry. I was looking for the Sanctuary trailer. Bloodhounds... yeah, that's Bloodhounds, not Sanctuary. Still a great show, though. Yeah, that knife scene towards the end of the second act of the show, I don't want to give too much away with people watching, but the bad guys, as they do in any show, prevail at a certain point, or at least generally prevail, which makes the resolution always more satisfying when they get their cover. And this is a brutal knife fight between the baddie here and one of the good guys that's helping the Bloodhounds, who's he's an ex-gang guy. I don't know how they would describe them. They're all ex-Marines as well, and he's a knife specialist. But this baddie is also special, and there's a brutal fight in the kitchen of one of the good guys with knives, any kind of lots of sharp implements. This guy's just a brutal thug, and like a man mountain. They can punch him 100 times and he doesn't cave, the two kids are brilliant in it.
Speaking of knife fights, I don't know if you remember the fight between Steven Seagal and Tommy Lee Jones in Under Siege, I think.
Yes.
Final fight in very close quarters, and they both use a combination of Aikido and knives.
That's what that scene is like. Yeah, it's two equally matched experts at close quarters, knife fighting, and martial arts. And yeah, it's a scary fight and much more visceral again than I was expecting. If it was a movie, it would definitely be R-rated. Multiple stab wounds, multiple explicitly violent stabbing scenes. With the bad, I'm not going to give too much away by saying the bad guy wins the fight for various reasons, because he's prepared for the fight. The guy he's fighting isn't. But even then, the bad guy gets brutally injured too in the fight, with a large spear-like implement. Very, very large knife. Let's put it that way.
Yes, Christian, that scene is awesome.
Oh, sledgehammer! Oh God, yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, Bloodhounds has many. Maybe my expectations are wrong going to Netflix shows, but I expect a lot of them to be violent, but not explicit. Brutally gory explicit. But that one certainly is, and it doesn't. If you were to go into it, you'd think it's another K-drama about two young ex-Marines who are boxers who are going to help some good guys defeat some bad guys, but it's going to be kind of on a certain level, like, fun, whatever. And there's a lot of comedy in the thing too, but when it gets to the action, it's brutal. So I don't mind that.
This is the same country that also did Old Man.
Oh, Old Boy, yeah.
Old Boy, yeah.
Old Boy. Well, Old Boy is brutal in its fighting, but it's the subject matter at the end is also something you wouldn't want to talk about on screen either.
Right.
It's and that's Choi Min-sik. That's the actor that everyone compares to, like in stature, to what De Niro used to be. Choi Min-sik.
Yeah.
Possibly the greatest Korean actor of his generation. And he was the star of things like The Admiral, Roaring Currents, and the star of Big Bet, the TV show that was made last year that I absolutely adore. To me, Big Bet is like the Korean equivalent of a Breaking Bad or The Sopranos or whatever. It's that good. In my opinion, that's just me. So, Choi Min-sik, great actor. He started out, his first big movie role was way back in 1999 in a movie called Shiri, where he played a North Korean agent. And whilst now Choi Min-sik's a big guy, he's not one of these guys that's ripped and he's an older guy, and he shows that he's got the weight on. He was brutally realistic in the fighting in that movie when he was probably in his 20s or early 30s. So Shiri is the movie that many people cite, including like Tarantino, is one of his favorite movies as the breakout Korean movie of Korean cinema in terms of acknowledgement. It was like the first modern Korean movie with a lot of action in it, and great actors like Choi Min-sik. check it out if you get the chance. You can see it shows its age a little bit now, but in terms of action, absolutely brilliant. Everyone cites and I guess there is a Hong Kong influence on Korean movies. You can see it through the 90s and 2000s stuff. There's a lot of the action movies have that Hong Kong style. This was the first Korean one that started to try and forge its own style a little bit and be separate from that Hong Kong stuff. So, Sherry, fantastic movie. So let me just add this. So you see in Sanctuary a lot of this. I didn't know about that history. The dohyos where they're training, and they're like houses where all they live together. The samurais, they train together, they eat together, they sleep in the same room, like the Korean military stuff you see in the draftees. They all sleep in the same room, and of course, there's conflict between the families, but they're pretty tight as well. And all the other houses, I mean, you see the bureaucracy above them that has favorites and tries to help or harm other houses, because they themselves were sumos, and they have their own prejudices against guys are running houses that defeated them. But this guy Eno is like the punk rocker of the scene, and his motivation getting into it originally is cash. He's a big guy. He needs to make some money because he's got family issues. But as it goes on, he starts to respect the traditions, and he starts to train properly. And he overcomes a really brutal beating by another sumo, who himself is, you see the backstories of these guys, and they're coming from different challenging environments. You see the backstories of the more privileged ones that have been born into it. And then there's guys like Eno here, who's nothing to do with sumo in his life, but he's into it. He gets into it for those reasons. You see their backstories. It is, thanks Davina for the info, but it's an awesome show with a great deal of personal story arcs in it, but also the backstabbing, bitching, bureaucracy, the favoritism, the attempts to rig bouts by some people. I enjoyed it immensely. Mrs. Rock fan, I was a bit more ambivalent about it, but I just enjoyed the main character. His arc of up and then huge down, then a little more up, and then huge down, and then finally he gets it. He gets the spirituality of it. He respects the traditions. He has enemies within his own house, but he brings them to his side by his sheer force of will, and they see him training and trying to improve and getting into it. I found that fascinating. Zax, you and I should probably talk about this show on a stream at some point, but it was great. I was a bit surprised by the 8th episode being so short. Like, it's half an episode really, so that's a bit weird, even from a production perspective. Like, why was it just half an episode? Is there a part 2? I don't know, because they certainly left it at a point where, yes, there could easily be a part 2, because it stopped at a particular point, kind of frustratingly, if you like things to be wrapped up in it, with a bout starting, but you don't see the outcome of the bout. So yeah, it could easily go into a part 2, I think. So
yeah.
So anyway, let me just start to wrap up. Thank you everybody for being here for this show. I really appreciate it. Go check out The Point Men. Go check out all these wonderful Korean movies. I mean, I've got videos on my channel about some of them. I intend to do a lot more about Korean movies and shows. Just such a great gold mine of entertainment that I didn't know about until a couple of years ago, and now I'm totally hooked. Great Japanese entertainment too. Hell, there's great stuff coming out of Indonesia and
Oh yeah.
Still Taiwan and Hong Kong are producing good stuff. It's particularly if you like me, I like action stuff, and there's some great kick-ass stuff.
My two favorite Korean movies are still Train to Busan and The Host.
Oh God, The Host is great.
I'm with you with The Host.
Yeah,
I would say The Host and Parasite, which is not a fun watch, but it's a very good watch.
It's not a fun watch, but it's got great actors in it who you'll see in many other Korean shows. The lead actor is brilliant in that. The guy that does the infiltration, I love that infiltration into that family. The Host is also kick-ass. It's just such good stuff. I would say my favorites, we've talked about some. Train to Busan. Go watch Rampant with Hyun Bin. It's like a Joseon era Train to Busan with the zombies.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun movie, I'd have to say. So
and I also got a soft spot for Pulgasari, but that is North Korean.
Now I'm not as familiar with anything North Korean. I know that in the South Korean movies they often portray a lot of North Korean guys coming over and being the good guys, so there's a certain element to that. Now the star of Parasite, of course, was the star of the Host, same guy.
Yeah.
So great link there between those two movies. But yeah, check out Rampant. Check out some of the other great stuff. There's so much of it. But thank you everybody for being here. I know this is my last regular show, but I will still be a part of Pop Culture Minefield if Gary lets me, and I'll still join shows, and I've offered to stand in occasionally and
all right. So
sorry.
Nope. I've often to stand and give people a break. It's not because I'm trying to get away from Pop Culture Minefield. I just got too many other commitments, unfortunately for me on a personal level. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm proud to be associated with this channel and great people like John and Martin and Gary and all the others. And it's been a pleasure seeing you all in the chat every week. Thank you very much for being a big part of this and supporting this channel. We have a lot of fun, I'd like to think.
Yep.
Yeah. So
been great. We're gonna miss you around here as far as a regular host.
Yeah, and it's not to say I wouldn't ever come back and do it again. It is a little early in the morning for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I still get to hang out with you every Monday. So
well, that's right, John. You're still a big part of my Monday stuff, and that will continue. I will miss you all too on a regular basis, but I'll be doing shows with you again.
Yeah,
all of you. So, and I certainly hope.
I just hope you don't get sent to Detroit.
No, I'm pretty sure I won't ever get sent to Detroit unless it's to be in there to visit our great friend Darius Munchausen, of course, who's in the greater Michigan area. But, it's been a blast, a lot of fun. Take care, everybody. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all again. I hope maybe on August the 10th on the Point Men show. So, as I'm now theoretically an expert on that movie. Having watched it 4 times and done two videos and a stream on it, are we good to go, Martin, or do I need to?
Yeah.
So take care, everybody. Thanks to all of you. It's been real.
It has been a pleasure, Brian.
My pleasure. The honor was all mine. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.